we keep talking about.
Integrity.
It talked about many of these things. It was watered down so that what became now the law were vague things that you're never really quite sure, what it is that you need to. And in that vagueness, you go to court to seek interpretation. So I'm simply saying this, that when someone says something and they're the head of state, they must be called out and told, we can't have you vacillating like this, because you sway opinions and people feel you're not taking a stand on something we consider serious. Yes, indeed. But we cannot have an honest conversation if we don't look at all these aspects that contribute to somebody saying what they're saying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because even so, those were watered down. But there are other acts as well. Let me just quote the words of Felix Koskei. All public officers are required to adhere to the highest standards of ethical conduct and to secure their strict compliance with the directive, as well as compliance by all officers under the supervision, direction, or control. And Koskei said this in upholding the national principles and values of governance as enshrined in Article 10 of the Constitution and various laws, including the Public Officers Ethics Act, the Public Service Commission Code of Conduct and Ethics, and the Public Collections Act.
Good for Felix.
So
how's that working out for Felix?
No, it should,
since he made the pronouncement.
Is it supposed to be working for Felix?
It is,
all
because
of us?
if he pronounces it, given his position, should he then not ensure that it is actually actioned,
followed through by
is
everybody,
just saying
including
for
the
sake of-
president? Absolutely.
But of course, we don't have a monarchy. There's
Exactly.
nobody who's above the law in this country. So, or was he telling us that was meant for a specific number of people, groups of people, and not necessarily the highest office in the land? Thank you for highlighting it, Felix. Now let's see how it works.
Everybody must be bound by it, and that's something that we all must take into consideration at all times. And everybody should be held to account for what they say.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Or should we give exceptions to a few people?
Not you. Well, we're getting into the conversation that we, have scheduled for this hour, and Suba North Member of Parliament, bad girl Millie Odhiambo, is here this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I am
and
well.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
We would have hoped that you would have been here at 8 o'clock, Mheshimiwa.
And I sent my apologies. I make it very, you were talking, I think, about ethics and integrity and stuff. Mm-hmm. I make it very open that I'm not a morning person.
You've said this
so
before.
I struggle. I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we have here is a success story. She's here and it's morning.
It's morning.
Yes.
It's still morning.
So
well, I'm trying. One of my goals is to try and be earlier. I mean, do better morning-wise. But it's a struggle. Well, I was just born that way.
We are glad to see you either way.
Yes.
And, a number of things to discuss this morning. And we're glad that you joined us in that conversation, that you've joined us for this conversation. But we're going to welcome you really quickly with today's proverb. CT will share that with you. And then you can tell us how you would interpret that. Okay.
We are in the land of honest people, Burkina Faso.
Yes.
If the shade does not reach the goat will seek the shade.
If the shade doesn't reach the goat,
the goat will seek the shade. It's a bit of a tongue twister given where I come from.
Well, I guess it's kind of what Gen Zs did. Yeah. I think.
You think?
Well, multiple of different things, but like what Gen Zs did. It's a goat trying to reach the shade. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You find it. You find your way somehow, isn't it?
Yeah, you find your way somewhere.
Okay.
Somehow.
A lot of things have been happening. Thank you for sharing your interpretation of that. A lot of things have been happening, and there are things that would already take the country to fever pitch right now. But let's take a few steps back, and just to hear what your thoughts are around, a broad-based government. It would appear that when the broad-based government was formed, that it was an answer to the interests that a lot of the people in Kenya were saying something needs to be done about the position in which we were in. Do you think the broad-based government was a panacea to these issues, Millie?
Well, let me correct your statement. The broad-based government was not formed. There is no legally, we don't have a broad-based government.
So what is it?
We actually have some kind of cooperation. And I think I've said it before, even on the floor of the House. And more recently, even when we were meeting, as ODMers, that's what we said. There is no broad-based government, in the way that you're saying it. But we have a cooperation with the government. Right now, there are negotiations for a possible then broad-based government. And if you listen to me when we are talking about majority, minority, I said there's broad, but there's no base.
There's no base.
That shows the nature of, the amorphous nature that I'm speaking to. And when you have that kind of amorphous natures, then the kind of questions you're asking are likely to arise.
For sure.
As I'm coming up here, I've seen on your escalator, you have a very nice, no, not governance, but employee empowerment thing on your escalator. And you're saying you move from here to there to there. You have very clear goalposts about what you can measure on employee satisfaction and all that. If I were to measure the success, say, of the broad-based government, I measure it against what goalpost?
Okay.
There's none.
So let me ask then, what was the point of a cooperation in government? Because this cooperation, as it were, came in directly after the protest, where there was clamor and there was call for change this, change that. And then we saw this cooperation now start to morph into what it kind of is today. Was it an answer?
I think what we have is a situation where I would say you see a child about to grab a burning fire. As a parent, you don't say, let us see how we are going to educate this child about the pros and cons of touching fire. You first remove the child. And then after you remove the child, then you say, okay, now let's come in and discuss about how we can train this child about not touching fire.
Right.
So what we did at that point, and I'm sure if you remember, there was a lot of back and forth about even how our CSS got into government. You know there are two dimensions about them going in on their own without the party blessings. And after going in on their own, then the party now said, okay, But it was really on the nature of the circumstances then, that you had a Gen Z revolution, they got going to the shade. And then what happened is we asked a question, what next?
Yes.
Yeah, and I remember for me, because it's not in secret that I was supporting the Gen Zs and what they were doing, because the country was going really completely off. And so when the Gen Zs did this, for me, I really loved it for two reasons. One reason is that it was they were basically raising the same things that our party has raised over the years on governance. But our party was always being, told it's ethnic, it's, we're branded with a whole lot of things. But then now you suddenly have a new generation who are saying they are tribeless and they're only concerned about, governance issues, raising the same issues. But after they did all this, it actually morphed into totally something else. Some other people, hijacked. I was in parliament. I can tell you for a fact that the people that I saw in parliament, some of them were not Gen Zs. There were people who had ulterior motives, and they came in, and then the next day you had military all over the country. So what do? Do you, as a leader, stand by and say, let's wait and see? Or do you come in and help to stabilize? And those are one of the most difficult situations in leadership.
Sure,
because you are caught between a rock and a hard place. Because at that point, as a party, what we wanted was for the president to be out. But then we said, okay, how?
Yeah.
And then what? There was no answer to how and what.
I'm still trying. I'm so hard pressed, and I think that you may be too at that point.
Yes.
Where we were trying to see then how the inclusion of certain individuals then in government was an answer to these issues that you talk about that were being raised. That if we're seeing Gen Z on the street, and like you said, you were supportive. You understood, and you actually stood in line, and you saw the issues as well. How was now bringing in generals of this ODM party into government an answer to these issues that took Gen Z to the street? Do you see there was an answer?
I can't tell you that it was an answer. But it was when you have malaria and you have a fever and somebody gives you Panadol, the fever will go down.
For today, maybe.
But malaria is still there.
Right.
So yes, we ODM generals being invited in was Panadol to malaria, and it reduced the fever. But that doesn't mean, I think I would be from us if I cheated you and said that there aren't problems. There are problems, and the problems need to be sorted. We need to be very honest as a country about the way we deal with the issues that are emerging. Even when I am in this loose cooperation, even as a minority whip, I will say that there are problems. And there are some that you can see from our addressing. I may not tell you, but there are some we address off cameras. Yeah, and you can see some changes. But there's still a lot. So for me, yes, we started off with the Panadol, and we've started with the dose of malaria. But malaria has a time span when, for you to get well.
All right.
Yes. And so for me, actually,
or to get sicker.
No, you can get sicker. If you're on medication, you can get better.
Okay.
But sometimes you get cerebral malaria before then you get a drip and then you get better. So it could be. I don't know the trajectory, but for sure there are problems. And I would want to encourage even people in KK government, do not try to say there are no problems, because it annoys Kenyans when you say there are no problems. There are problems. But when there are problems, you sort it out. I've just come from my constituency, and I went to this beach. And when I went there, I found some women, when I was addressing people there, these women were like, don't talk to us. We are very mad. I'm like, why are you mad? They say, because there's a road here that's messed up. We don't know whether it's a county government or whether it's Kera, but we don't want to hear any leader now. And I told them, okay, I'm here. And I'm here because of those same issues, so that you can listen. There's a problem. So I think the other challenge you are facing, in Kijaluo, you say Ogwang, you say something, I'm forgetting, but which means basically that when a wild whatever grabs your chicken, when a wildcat grabs your chicken, sometimes it's an issue of the chicken, and you blame both.
All right.
Because sometimes the chicken. So I think there's an element of we must be listening to each other.
All right.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the cooperation, because
Yes.
you said it's not broad-based. It's broad but no base. Now, I'm curious. You, when you came into, let me say Kenya Kwanza came into power, first it was, they did not actually legally win this,
Yes,
seat.
and we've got
and
to court
Azimio
about
was,
it.
yes, and
Yes.
you went to court about it. Then there was a majority-minority conversation. And now this same people that you want out, you are cooperating to save them or save the country? I just need clarity.
To save the country.
To save the country.
We cannot be cooperating.
Would it have been better if they were out? Because a lot of times we had, legislators allied to ODM, as you were saying, if you can't do the job, get out. But suddenly you're cooperating to make it work?
No, we are cooperating to make the country work.
Okay.
And sometimes, let me tell you what you need to understand. Honorable Jonet said something yesterday, even though he said it in a way that I wouldn't say it myself. Yeah? But let me rephrase what he said. And what I've learned in politics. I come from a civil society background. And for me, from a civil society background, things were either black or white. But in politics, there are gray areas. And in the gray areas, it means that sometimes you have to work with a person that you don't agree with in order for you to meet your ends or your goals. And sometimes, and that's why we didn't agree, for instance, with President Ruto, not as a person, but based on policy when we are actually going into elections. But we didn't agree with him because we also wanted to get power, because we thought our system and our style would take us far. But now he's in power, and he's facing challenges. And he's invited us, and we've said, okay, we can come to help you with the same agenda And you listen to some of ADM people are very consistent. They are telling you we can't leave our values and principles behind as ODM. Because we came in, and just as I was coming in here, I was listening to the executive of our party on another radio. And he was talking about where the ODM has come from. And ODM came from the Orange movement, which was constitutional change. So we are about reform. And we can't lose that trajectory of reform and pro-people. That's what we're about. And guess what? Even the president came from ODM,
right?
So if he's having missteps as ODM, we probably there just to remind him where he came from. Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, let me ask the question. When ODM takes the path of, well, the noble path really, of going beyond what seems to be in the tongue of most people to support a government that is clearly crawling, is it to help change this particular government from within, or is it to replace it?
Well, we are coming in to cooperate. As of now, you do realize even our party leader is consulting. So you have actually jumped ahead of the consultation. Our consultation will then tell us whether are we cooperating with a name to replace, or are we cooperating to help this government because we think there is a possibility of changing. That is part of our consultation. But let me tell you what also, as politicians, there's a very young girl, I love these Gen Zs, why lie? There's a young girl who was, a young Kikuyu girl, who I saw on TikTok or something yesterday, advising Rigiji. And she was like, gosh, I don't know what's wrong with this guy. And she's saying, how do you talk about your strategy, about Gema, about Kikuyu, to the public? There are things you keep in the bag. So let me tell you, even if we had a strategy, which we still don't have, don't expect me to come and tell you here. No, we won't. There are some political strategies. You can't put everything because this is about power.
Some country must keep to your chest, essentially.
There's some you have to keep to your chest. So don't expect that there's a politician here that will come and tell you that now our strategy is to replace Ruto or to do blah, blah, blah. We are at the moment consulting.
Okay.
But should we even want to remove him, I'm telling you, we will not tell you.
We will not tell him or us. Okay. Look, you talked about two things, and it seems to be the clarion call or the chant that is very rife in Kenya today, and not just it's across political strata, it's across social strata, and that is the same thing that you mentioned: reform and pro-people. That it has to be that. Now, there's a lot of speculation at the moment. There's a lot of innuendo being spewed all over the place about what your party leader Raila Odinga will do when it comes to then a possible partnership with the president. And if anything, it screams that it would be anything but pro-people and reform, which is what ODM stands for. What is your thought about that speculation? I mean, for goodness sake, they were shaking hands just the other day.
What I can tell you is we have a beautiful constitution that allows you to speculate. And I remember when Robert Ouko died, I was in the university, and one of the people, the minister then I can't remember anyways, PS or whatever, told us, do not speculate. And I remember the first time I came out demonstrating, I had a chat saying, we must speculate.
We must speculate.
So we must speculate.
We must fill the hole with something.
Kenyans must speculate. It is healthy, it's acceptable. But the other thing I can tell you, if there is one politician that I give marks, is one Raila Amolo Odinga. It's very difficult to be a Raila Amolo Odinga. You are damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he doesn't support the government, he's blamed. If he supports the government, he's blamed. When he stays home, he was told direct to Bondo, he went to Bondo, he was blamed when things are good. He's gone to AU that has nothing to do with us. He loses. People are cheering and are happy that he has lost. So it's very difficult to be one Raila Amolo Odinga. So within that context of people speculating what our party leader is going to do and all that, I think it is in their place. It is in order. But our party will make a decision using a consultative process, just the way you are seeing us doing right now. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
We must speculate. All right.
Yeah.
What is this thing I'm hearing?
Which
That you have demands that the NADCO report be fully implemented. Is it really? Because what I'm seeing is the Prime Minister position. I am seeing a number of things in the NADCO report that might be of benefit to your leader, Raila Odinga, in case everything goes right. Or is it this speculation, or is it?
Again, that is speculation because you
Okay.
can see we are consulting. But
All
on the
right.
other hand, you know me, I shoot straight. And I'm telling you, I'm going back to the same thing that Junet said in a very...
In the way he said it.
in the way he said it.
Yes.
I don't have the excellent adjectives to say what he said. But what I can tell you is we are in politics. And why do people get into politics?
For power.
Amongst others. But it's for power. And it's for power for different reasons. Some people want that power to change people's lives. Some people want that power to enrich themselves. We
Correct.
want that power to change lives. So if, for instance, we think this direction may give us power, there's absolutely nothing wrong about it. And if you do realize, fortunately, I was in the constitutional review process, and I was one of the 27 members who birthed the constitution of this country. And it's clear what our position was. That's
Okay.
what we wanted from the get-go. I am not saying that's what we are negotiating now, but I can tell you for a fact, I wouldn't be surprised if it's what we are negotiating now, because I'm not part and parcel of the entire spectrum of negotiation. Because we've always been all about that system of governance. That's what we've always wanted. So there's nothing wrong. Don't make us look like we are coming to ask for something out of mass. This is what we've always wanted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do the interests of Kenyans lie in all of these things that are being done? Because it would appear as though the boardroom holds just a few people, and that there's some parties, and even in those parties, there are few in terms of representation. But there are millions of people out here who are begging and praying that their representatives will take the issues that they have every day forward. It would appear as though political and personal expediency is what's being sought after. It would appear as though people want, to make sure that they have their spots in leadership at whatever level, at the behest of Kenyans' interests.
That is not necessarily true, especially of our party. If you remember again after the Gen Z issue, that our party leader called for a national dialogue. The Gen Zs rejected. So we do our dialogues in the best way we know how. The way my party leader is doing right now. Yeah. Because we asked for a national dialogue and everybody said, no, we don't want any national dialogue. So if you are the same people you are saying want to be at the table, do not want to be at the table. Look at Makore. Makore has joined our party and every young person is bashing him. So where do you want to have this structure? Either form a party as young people and challenge that, because this is politics. This is, even yesterday I saw not just one church, but several churches where people are fighting and kicking and, for church leadership. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
People are fighting for positions in churches. And you expect politics that is what it's all about. For people to sit and say, now, all of you come, even though the others have been invited. They've just said, no, we are also seeking this power. And this is our path. And you've even listened to what Rigijia said. Rigijia said, and he's, again, I don't know about the strategy of this Rigiji. He's just an amazing guy.
All right.
But he said, Gema, we are taking this for 100 years. Is that in the interest of Kenyans? How many Kenyans are Geman? And then they told the Kamba Nation, come in and now you will become Mount Kenya, Sijui West or something. Then I said, supposing the way some of, or the way he was inviting Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga to join this union, then we become, from Luo Nyanza, we become Mount Kenya. South or Mount Kenya what? I mean,
West.
we have to understand. We have to understand the nature of politics.
Yeah.
Politics is about getting power. And look at us. We actually said we won. Not only once, twice, 3, 4 times.
Correct.
And all those 4 times you've been saying the power has been taken from us. But we've negotiated. It's a smart thing that only the Raila Amolo Odingas are able to do. Me, I'd still be sulking at a corner. I'm not a perfect politician. I'd still be sulking at a corner.
Fair enough, but someone would ask, where did the voices of the high cost of living, demand to go lower, go to? Where did the voices calling out on interference with political parties go to? Where is the voice calling out, government on, wastage and expenditure, let alone the majority-minority conversation? Kenyans just feel it's gone a little lower, especially after the NADCO-backed IBC bill was immediately signed, etc. Because that's really what they're asking. This corporation is supposed to amplify their voices, but seemingly the voice is going to diminish with time.
You said it is going to.
Is it?
It's a presumption.
Yes, because
It is not
that's
by
the fear
by my genetic makeup. My dear, leave alone politics. By my genetic makeup, which is also the genetic makeup of a lot of people from Western Kenya. Things can't go wrong, and you watch. It's just our genetic makeup. Cannot and will not happen. And so if we are not raising it, where you are seeing it, I'm telling you, we are raising it elsewhere.
Okay.
It's our genetic makeup. It's something you can't run away from, that we are all born very differently. There are people who are born with, diplomacy, others fighters,
Okay.
others raise issues. By our very nature, I'd have to deny who I am for me to not raise issues.
To sit back and watch things.
To sit
kind
back
of,
and watch.
you know,
It's
go
not
up in
it's not a
smoke.
possibility.
The party doesn't seem to be on a united front, Millie. I mean, there are voices from within that are saying certain things. I mean, Jimmy Orengo said the other day, hold on, Raila Odinga, don't be quick to go in and form any kind of alliances. Hang fast to the tenets that this party was built on. Edwin Sifuna has taken a hit by many members of the same party to say, who are you to speak on our behalf? George Kaluma has said, for example, no, we are going to work with William Ruto and he will win the 2027 election. All of these are members of the same party.
That is true.
Peter Kaluma, George Peter Kaluma.
That is true.
All of these are members of the same party. Is there disunity in the message?
No, there's not disunity. There's just democracy.
How is
In
that?
our party, everybody can talk and say whatever they want, especially when a party position has not been spelled out. And I can tell you, there has been no party position. When we recently had a meeting, one of the things that came out very clearly was that there's been no party position. And there's been no party position because a party leader is actually consulting. And therefore, people like Honorable Kaluma was giving his personal view. You know, we are all different. We all come from different backgrounds. Honorable Kaluma, for his own reasons, would love to be inside the government yesterday.
With William Ruto?
Yes, would want to be in yesterday. Honorable Rengo would want a more cautious approach. And many other people would want a more cautious approach. Others, like me, would want certain things on the table first. Issues of human rights, governance, and all that, yeah? So there are all those dimensions. And that is part of the negotiations, I can tell you for a fact. That the things and concerns that we are raising are part of the issues that we are telling the other side. That if you are coming in on the on this table, there are things that are not identified with our party, and we would not want to see them. And they don't even add value to this government whatsoever. If, for instance, a young person is abducted, how does it add value to this government? It doesn't. It just makes you look bad. So, for sure, what you are saying is true. Everybody has our party people say anything, whatever,
Whichever
everywhere,
the way the wind blows.
until a party position is taken. So if a party position is taken and you go against a party position, then you go through disciplinary process. And many people have gone through that disciplinary. Only recently, people like Mark Nyamita had to pay fines.
Yeah.
Really, yeah?
Yes, they had to pay fines for going against party position.
Okay.
They went and cooperated when we were not cooperating. That was not the party position. They had to be disciplined for that. Politics changes all the time. So you can't say that because we were in Nakuru yesterday, we can't be in Mombasa. The only thing doesn't change is values and the interest of the public for us.
What then would you say is the ODM position when it comes to making the lives of Kenyans better?
As the same as it has always been, is to see ways of making the lives of Kenyans better. And we are actually appreciating that the government is facing different challenges, some of which are not even emanating from Kenya. Some of it is, global economic crisis, not just Kenya that is going through this. So we do appreciate that. But then some of it is also because we have endemic corruption. And it's not just because of this government. It has been successive governments. And so what we would want is actually a plan in place for dealing with corruption. And you can see already some cases are already in court, which is a good thing. Yeah, because if we don't have that hemorrhage in terms of corruption, then Kenyans will continue to suffer. But then also we must have a level of openness and transparency in relation to some transactions. Like I recently underwent training on PPP. I've been very opposed to any form of PPP. But when I went through this training, I was like, yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing. But you don't let Kenyans know what it is about, and you don't make those agreements public. Yeah, so you need to make agreements public. When you single source, you need to let Kenyans know why you are single sources. And when you make things public, then there's a lot less of speculation.
And there's understanding that comes about.
Yes, there's a bit of
there?
understanding that comes with it. So what I would want to, part of the things that, part of our negotiation is let's be more open and transparent when you have PPPs. A lot of countries have transformed immensely from PPP. I used to work do a lot of work in Ethiopia before I came into parliament. The last 6 years, go to Addis. I was blown over. It's the new Europe. There
you go. So let's say, because, since we're speculating, let's just play in that puddle for a minute and say that the consultations will then be, and if I could take a step back and say that I've listened to a lot of the things that you've said over the last 10 years being in opposition to certain things and saying that, one, we will not allow certain things like, corruption, things like lack of transparency and the abrogation of human rights. Yeah. You've been very vocal about things like that, and you still are till today. And also extremely critical of a government that would appear to support things like that and say we cannot allow this. You've been very vocal to the point of blind, fiery, refusal to even speak with somebody else who seemed to support things like that.
Yes.
So if we speculate today and say that there's a possibility, right, that Raila Odinga will join William Ruto, what would be your position? And I'm asking as Millie Odhiambo on a decision like that, were it to be made.
Well, if Raila were to join William Ruto, he wouldn't be joining William Ruto to violate human rights. Neither will he be joining William Ruto to enhance corruption. He will be joining William Ruto to ensure that the same things you are saying are not done. And I think for some of us, there are certain things that are deal breakers, both at a party level and at individual level. They are deal breakers. And therefore, what I can tell you for a fact, that there are some of us, this is both the beauty and the challenge in being principled, that it comes with a lot of hiccups, political hiccups. Because when you have no values, you can go anywhere, move left, right, jump in any government with whatever condition. But for us, some of us, there are things which are deal breakers. But I can tell you for a fact, unfortunately I can't just share, but I can tell you for a fact that we discuss certain things off cameras.
Okay.
And there are some things that we are seeing changing off camera. Yeah.
I know time is running out, but there are Kenyans who died, particularly 2023 when Azimio was, fighting for the high cost of living. The Kenyans have died prior to many other, occasions to this one, Gen Zs, etc. I'm still curious on, is part of the consultation around fully compensating some of these families and their victims? Because there's no way you're moving forward with that.
Yes, that is a big factor, including the Gen Zs. The only thing I'm glad that you have raised, Kenyans, we are also very interesting. That people think that, and it's unfortunate that we lost a lot of young people during the Gen Z revolution, but that is not the only time we have lost Kenyans. That's a year before then. We buried 2 young men from one family in Vihiga, and we buried many other people. I was actually traumatized. I had to seek counseling because of the many dead bodies that we saw. So one of the things that is on the table is actually reparations for the families.
I mean, our time is spinning, but Millie, Kenyans want to hear, truthfully, what would be your message today? In terms of waiting for all these consultations to happen, not knowing which way to go in the future, what would you say to Kenyans today?
What I would want to say to Kenyans is that we are facing challenges as a country. This government is in its 2.5 years, so it is very sort of expected normally to have challenges within the first 2 years, 3 years, very normal. However, it is facing also slightly more challenges than any other government has faced. And we are raising those issues with the government. And what I can tell Kenyans that as ODM, should we go in, should we not go in, our interest is always the people. That will always remain.